see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So again, we're comparing, what is it really not a bad year to the best year, on record. And so we're starting to see some changes, and we'll look at it on the graphs here in a couple minutes. Starting to see some changes to what's going on when we compare to last year. So we're still seeing median prices go up, and remember, median is the middle. So you got sales that are down 40% over last year, and you have less sales. So the middle sale obviously is increasing. Is that not mean the market is overall is increasing? Probably not. It's probably very neighborhood specific, and probably the overall increase is probably not anywhere near 29%. But the problem is there's not many properties available under 500,000. So the prices that are of the sales are up, which drives the middle price up. And that's been happening, every month this year. So we're seeing, what look like significant increases in the median price, but a lot of it has to do with the product mix. So
Okay.
I don't go heavily by those. Obviously, I think prices are still going up a little bit, but in general, we're getting more price reductions in some markets than we are listings. So we're starting to see the market change quite a bit. Days on market still down to around 20. That's increasing in many neighborhoods. New listings up 2% over last year. So we're starting to see the new listings increase and the pendings decrease. So we're seeing price reductions and new listings at a rate that we haven't seen. And we're seeing then, look at the inventory numbers. The inventory numbers over last year significantly up. So the combination of the new listings and the price decreases, which effectively become new inventory, are up quite a bit. We're not obviously out of a seller's market, and everything's very neighborhood specific.
Yeah. But
we're
that's a pretty
still,
dramatic increase in
yeah. And we're seeing it also in Lee. So prices look like they're still holding pretty good. These are percentage of list price in overall single family homes. So, I
but
don't know that.
that includes price reduction, correct?
Right. That's the relationship to the final selling price.
Gotcha.
So if I reduce my price and then sell it, I'm probably going to sell closer to that reduced price.
Right.
Right. Notice sales down significantly over last year. Still a result of a lack of inventory. Some buyer fatigue. Although 60% of our market is still cash, we still see we're bound to see the effects of increased interest rates. And I think specifically if you're working with somebody that's interested in new construction, now all of a sudden the emails are coming out, hello friend, remember us, we're paying commissions again. And, we didn't need you for a year or so, but now we do. And I think, if you have a customer that's looking at new construction, whereas they were, having a lotto for lots, now I think you can go to many of these places and you'll find that deals have fallen through because the interest rates are double what they were a year ago. So those families that were using financing a year ago at, they didn't get a 1-year rate lock, I can tell you that. They probably locked in at 2.5 to 3.5, and now they're 5.5 to 6. So sometimes some new construction inventory is increasing, as a result.
Do you think that sales is like starting to show normal seasonality?
Absolutely. I think that's the other thing that's happening is, this is the first year when people have gone home. 20 and 20, 20 and 20, nobody hardly went home. 21, there were still a lot of communities that were still high COVID rates, and a lot of people still, states like Michigan, Canada was locked down, Michigan, a lot of states were locked down even last summer. So I think we're starting to see a normal return to seasonality. Lee County, similar increases in the median price, but again, I think it has more to do with the product mix. Days on market average is still around 17 days, down over last year, but don't really know. That's going to be neighborhood specific. New
Yeah.
listings up significantly.
Wow.
Pending sales still up. So, a lot of what we've done in Collier is to drive people to Lee. I mean, the prices have
Because
gone
the
up
price,
to the point where a lot of people have gone up to Lee. You can
yeah,
see that their sales have gone down, but not at the rate that Collier's gone down.
yeah,
And
that makes
their
sense.
inventory is increasing, but not at the rate that it's increasing in Collier.
Right.
So still a large number of price reductions in both counties. And that coupled with the increase in listings is creating, we're not obviously anywhere near a buyer's market, but we're headed toward a balanced market, I think. So let me stop share that. Let me share. So if we look at the this graph that I produced, this is one that I put out on Facebook. It has a little comparison of current year versus previous month versus previous year and versus blow that up a little bit. Is that better?
I mean, my tired little eyes, I'm having a hard time, but I can screenshot it and
Well, it's like I said, it's on the Facebook page, so you're
okay.
welcome to grab it and use it. But all what you're seeing here is the dark green is properties sold, the light green is properties available for sale. So
Okay.
the minute you start to look at probably December and January, that number bottomed, and look at it, it's up significantly, and it's being driven up by all these new listings, which have tailed
Okay.
off a little bit since March, but still take a look cumulatively the number of new listings.
Right.
So what's happening, the pendings are trailing off a little bit, but the number of options for buyers has gone up significantly with price reductions and new listings. And, as you point out, a lot of buyers got fatigued and said, see you next year.
Yeah.
And, we traditionally also have buyers that come in the summer when they feel like they can get a better deal. In this case, they may not be getting a much better deal, but they're getting more choices. And so if you start to take a look at new listings, down a little bit over the previous month, but up quite a bit over the same month a year ago, and 4,000 new listings same quarter a year ago. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, so these are just designed really to say, we compare, obviously, is this the May chart or the June chart? Oh, wrong chart, sorry. I'll see if I can get the right chart there for you.
So while you're looking for that, I have a quick question for you. So
Sure.
you've obviously been through many shifts.
Yeah,
And
I got in the market in 2007. My
Okay.
timing wasn't very good.
So obviously, this is more of a market that buyers have been sort of clamoring for with the price reductions and less competition. But it seems like now they don't want to make a move. Do you feel like that's sort of normal when the seller's market
Yeah.
starts shifting and then they kind of just stop interest?
Yeah, Denny had a script thing on Friday, and it was pretty good. Here, I can share this chart. This will work. So basically, that was one of the scripts that they were working on, one of the buyer scripts that said, here we go. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Anyhow, that was one of the buyer scripts that they were working on was, well, I'm going to wait a little while. I see the prices are going down. and therefore I'm going to wait.
Yeah.
And of course, that's an interesting question. So this is July, the correct, published in July, but through June. So you can
Okay.
start to see an even more dramatic increase in the
Right.
number of properties available for sale. And if we go back to last year, it's dramatically more obviously than this month last year, but even at the peak, we started with 21 with like, I think it was 12,000 listings, and we started this year with 4,000. So I mean, the number of listings has, the number of available properties for sale has gone up dramatically. And
Yeah.
that's where we get the buyer script saying, hey, I see all these new properties coming on the market. I see all these, I see all these changes. So why don't I wait? Well, I mean, certainly he says, acknowledge, isolate, and so we acknowledge and say, well, I can understand how you feel. I mean, there's definitely a lot more options out there now than there were a year ago. But what is your, when do you plan on moving? Well, I don't really have timetable. I'm just looking for a good deal. Well, okay, so what are you doing now? Are you renting or do you own? Well, I'm renting. Oh, great. Okay, well, what's happened to your rent in the last year or two? Oh man, it's gone way up.
Yeah.
And what's happened to interest rates? Well, they've gone way up, and that affects affordability. Okay, well, what do you think is going to happen to your rent next year? Oh, well, it probably is going to go up again because all rents are going up. Yeah, absolutely. So so it's trying to delay the purchase until you time the market has never been a great idea. And in fact, um, economic conditions and inflation are worsening, and probably one of the best hedges to inflation is real estate, right? Because real estate values are still going up, and inflation is not going to take that, all of that away. So, I mean, I think what you're trying to do to say to a buyer is, yes, you have a lot more options, but waiting, what are you going to accomplish waiting? What's going to, I mean, obviously we uniformly do not think that there's going to be a bubble and that
Yeah.
prices are going to go crashing down. We see prices stabilizing, and in some markets going maybe down a little bit because of new listings coming on the market and sellers that were shooting for the moon reducing their prices, but we don't see a crash. And so
Yeah.
if somebody's renting now, you want to get them some numbers like, dude, how much are you spending now? What's your total cost per month? And here's what it could be if we bought that condo. And so I think we're transitioning from a, pick up the phone and sell something or stick your sign in the ground and sell something to a skills-based market.
Yeah.
So naturally, sellers are going to be reluctant because they'll be like, well, gee, I missed the top of the market. Well, where are you going to go? Well, we're going to downsize and buy another condo. Well, what do you think has happened to the price of that condo? Well, the price of your home has come down slightly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's probably come down too, hasn't it? So, I mean, it's one of knowing these numbers. That's why I'm working so hard trying to get these numbers out to everybody, because the more knowledgeable you are, and if you have a buyer that's looking in a neighborhood, or you have you're working in a farm area, you need to know what's going on, and you need to be able to explain it. So just because a lot more properties are coming on the market doesn't mean the market's going to tank. And if you're renting now or you're thinking about buying now, putting it off generally is not going to help.
Yeah.
I think interest rates are still going up a little bit. Clearly, the economic situation is not getting any better. And as it continues to decline, inflation continues to go up, what's going to happen to interest rates? So, and the other thing is that, if you're going to pull your money out of the stock market, stock market's kind of taking a beating. And what's going to come back stronger, a home that you buy or your stock? So a lot of yes and no's out there in the market, but by having the information, I think we're way ahead. So there you go. So
Awesome.
we'll take a quick look at Lee here. Okay, share the screen. Lee, June, share. We looked at this a little bit. So Lee not being anywhere near significantly in the sales. Well, let's look at the same graph for Lee. And can you see that okay?
Is this I think you showed this one already. No?
This is, wait a minute, let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
that's Lee.
that's Lee.
Okay.
Okay, so an even more dramatic rise in the number of properties for sale. Look at
Wow.
this over even, this goes back 14 months. So you look
Wow.
and see there's never been in 14 months as many properties available for sale. And look at the listing curve, it's bumping down a little bit, but the new listings are still, look at them since really December. And
Yeah.
yeah, the decline in pending is probably a little bit of the seasonality factor,
Mhm.
because you would expect pendings to go up, although they went up year over year from June of last year. So they're up a little bit, but they're still, they're on a declining scale. Some of it, as I
Yeah.
say, I think is seasonality. And some of it is, there was a great deal of buyer fatigue this spring. People were just
Yeah.
like tired
I'm
of
out.
being among 15 offers and all that. So I expect that pending number to start going back up because there's more choices. And I think more choices is going to bring people um, back into the market. So
Yeah.
I think for the agent that is hanging in there, working their database, reaching out to people, talking to them about what's going on with the market, I actually think you'll be fine. But where I see the problem is a lot of people I think are not, they're not trying to get smarter, and they're not working their database. And as a result, I think they're gonna suffer a little bit. And that is, when you can take your fair share, more than your
Yeah.
fair share.
That's why I'm committed to come every Monday as often as I can so I can stay up with my numbers and
Yeah.
know my stuff.
So this is the one that I put out every Tuesday. And this is, I got 8 weeks of data. I'm going to show it graphically. But I mean, this is the last, do it, I don't know, on Tuesday to let the weekend clear out. So this is last Tuesday, but look at in all the whole market, look at 806 new listings and 856 price drops. That's
Wow.
really 1,600 new opportunities on the market,
Exactly.
1,662. And solds are actually declining a little bit. Pendings also declining a little bit. So we're seeing, what really, at least for the time being, is a pretty healthy change in the market, because we're getting more opportunities. We're heading more toward a balanced market. Prices are coming down. And again, a lot of these, if you look at them, you go click on that button and look at them, they're not, 20%, but they're 4 or 5%,
Yeah.
readjusting to market conditions. So I think it's good. It's all good. Lee County, same thing. Collier and Lee followed the same thing. 239 and 229 and 504 and 561. So we're seeing the same trend throughout the entire market. And this is a good little graph to send to your customers that are, we're kind of on the fence about buying. What about those sellers that are like, well, I'd love to sell, but I don't have anywhere to go? That's not a good thing. So,
Yeah.
now they may be more amenable to, um, listing now when they weren't before. Although they have to overcome the barrier of saying, well, my neighbor sold for 850 back in March, and I
Yeah.
see another one that's just like mine that's on the market for 800. So I must have missed the market. Well, I can understand you feeling that, but if that was the only thing keeping you from selling, would you still consider selling? Well, yeah, I don't want to lose money. Well, where are you going? Well, we want to downsize to a smaller condo. The kids are gone. Well, there you go. So what do you think's happening on the other end? Well, if we start to look at some condos in the neighborhood you're interested in, what do you think's happening to those places?
Yeah,
They're not going up while yours is going down.
exactly.
And the one thing that are, that I think we came from shift is that the market that you sell in is the market you buy in.
Yep,
So everybody wants to sell high and buy low, but the market doesn't generally want to work that way. Market
right.
wants it to be balanced on both sides there. So bless you.
Thank you.
The other thing that I saw, and I won't dwell on it, but what I saw was we had the we have the leadership team has a growth call every Monday, and that's not a holiday. And I just was looking at these numbers. This is Keller Williams, or all of Keller Williams. So it's just showing you that the overall market around the country is not performing a heck of a lot different than ours. Closed
Right.
units are down. The month over month is like our graphic. It's June of this year, well, compared to June of last year. So closed units are down, but that's because last year was the best year on record. If we
Of
go
course.
back to 2019, then we will see that 2021 is slightly above 2019 in many of these numbers. So closed volume, still up a little bit year to date because prices have held.
Right.
Obviously, listings taken down. Um, that's going to start to come back up a little bit. I notice in our own market centers, the listings taken are down. Um, if you got a listing, try to get the price reduced. That's the same as taking a new listing.
Yep.
Listing taken volume, that you would expect that's up. Prices are still going up. Listing sold down. That means that there aren't 15 offers for every property, and there's more inventory coming in. So you would kind of expect that listings sold would be down a little bit, and listings volume might even be up a little bit year to date because we're still selling at little higher prices. That's telling you that the prices actually from last year might have trended up a little bit in some neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Contracts written down. That's not any surprise to anybody. But look at contracts written volume. So we wrote 10% less contracts year to date, but the volume by virtue of the price times the contract is up a little bit.
Is that basically just the same way as saying pendings?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, basically contracts written, they're not closed yet. Those are
Right.
pendings, and they call them contracts written. Average sales price you see is up over last year, and that's the leveling factor. Volume's down, but average selling prices are up. And the rest of it, this has to do with, the market center numbers. But I just wanted you to see that the overall market is not performing a heck of a lot differently um, than throughout the country is not performing a heck of a lot different than ours is. As a matter of fact, I think ours has the advantage of more cash sales, so we might be a little bit more insulated from the interest rate problem than other markets. So that's basically what I had in the way of an update. If there's any contract issues, did you get that slide I sent you from last week? I think the first one I sent you was the wrong slide, and then I sent you the one with the line numbers in there.
I got a couple. I saw
Okay, the second one is I pulled the wrong one for the first email. I sent you a second one, and
Yeah.
I'll just show it to you real quick here if we can find it. Let me go back to. But it was intended as kind of a handy reference because everybody seems to call and say, "Hey, is this defective?" Well,
Yeah,
let's look at the
I
contract.
did see
you
that.
know?
You said like a kind of a real short one and then a more,
Yeah, the short
inclusive.
one came
Yeah.
from the slideshow we did.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find this real quick. Yeah, there it is. Let me close this, and back to Zoom. Here we go. This is the one that I intended to send you. And the design of this is just so that it goes through all the line numbers in the contract that talk about defective inspection items. And then the next paragraph is systems and equipment shall be deemed to be in working condition. And then cosmetic conditions below. And those are line numbers in the NABOR standard contract that you can refer to when you're, a lot of people get in an inspection and they get a report back from the buyer and they say, well, is this defective? Well, if you have this little slide, you can generally go through it and see if it's defective or cosmetic. So that was the intent of it. And the first part of it is what you can inspect for. And what, for example, in mold, it's toxic or pathogenic. It's not non-allergenic mold, like Penicillium and Aspergillus. So those greatly exceed the number of pathogenic and toxic molds. So that's why we left that into the NABOR contract. FARBAR didn't talk about mold at all. And this year they came up with kind of a general mold rider that says if the cost to remediate is more than X, the buyer can cancel. I don't know. To me, if you've ever been through mold remediation quotes and mold analyses, it's so nebulous. And many of the mold remediators are get a little opportunistic. So it drives, they throw out numbers that probably a little higher. Maybe if you get a couple estimates, it'll be a lot different. And, mold remediation can be as simple as if there's surface mold, wiping everything down with a cloth or something like that. Yeah. So anyhow, that's the defective versus cosmetic that I sent you. And hopefully, like I said, probably half the calls I get, or maybe at least a third of them are, is this defective? So,
Yeah,
and
it's a good graphic to be able to just quickly reference.
yeah, FARBAR is a little different. The cosmetic conditions are a little different in FARBAR, like torn screens are defective conditions in FARBAR for some reason. But for the most part, normal wear and tear is really not cracks. If they're not structural cracks, this just in, everything in Florida is built on sand. And, it's going to shift over time and you're going to have some cracks. And if they're just, surface cracks in the stucco or in the garage, walls and stuff like that, it's, there's not a lot you can do about it. If it becomes structural where, things start to separate or, the block starts cratering or, that sort of thing. And then the other thing that we added with line 307 is free from wood rot. Wood rot can be a problem in Florida for wood that's not pressure treated that gets exposed to the elements. Majority, I guess the easiest example is the garage door that it's not generally solid steel. It's got steel on the outside and inside, and in the center is filler, and moisture gets in there and rots it. So that's probably the most common example of wood rot we see in our market.
Okay.
So I don't really have anything else on my agenda. I'm kind of waiting on this plumber, but I wanted to at least have part of the class and see if there was anything that you that you wanted to talk about.
I do have a question. I'm under contract on a new build, and
Okay.
we have a little bit of an extended closing because they're having a little bit of a challenge getting the appliances in.
Mhm.
So we have a 10-day inspection due diligence period. How do I address those items if they're not able to be inspected?
Well, yeah, one of the things that you can do in new construction is you can base your inspection period on the date that they get CO. And they won't get CO without appliances, or without at least some appliances. You might not have to have a refrigerator, but I know you have to have a stove.
Okay.
So that's the way I do it. If you're going to ask for an extension, then just say, all parties agree to extend the inspection period to run from the date of CO.
So all
And,
parties to extend the inspection period from the date of CO?
yeah, from the start of the inspection period, all parties agree to extend the start of the inspection period to begin when the CO is received or something from the date of CO. Obviously, the builder wants to close as quickly as possible, and it may very well be you can get in there ahead of time and do a punch list so that, as soon as they get CO, you can close. But the problem is that you can't really do any kind of a thorough inspection until they get CO.
Okay, because we have
Generally,
a scheduled inspection for this Thursday, and I asked if basically like the electrical, the plumbing, like the systems were able to be inspected, and they said yes. So we can do that first, and then just basically sign an amendment to the contract discussing the extension of the inspection period.
yeah, I
Okay.
would say, you'd have to extend it to at least, maybe 3 days, 5 days after the CO. Because, generally when they'll do that inspection, they'll come up with a punch list. And that's
Okay.
just for the things they're inspecting on.
Right.
So, if there's things you can't inspect, then you want to at least have a few days after the CO to finish your inspection and make sure that the punch list is complete.
Okay. Would you basically just would you recommend canceling the initial inspection if we're going to have to re-inspect?
Yeah, because you'll have to pay the inspector twice.
Okay.
But generally, you can get the inspection done now in 4 or 5 days. So, if they'll agree to extend it to 10 days past the CO or 5 days past the CO, that'll give you time to get the inspector in there. But can't see if there's, well, the only advantage that I can see is if there is, you find something wrong, then they can begin to fix it before you close.
Okay.
But you're going to inspect and get a punch list before you close anyhow. So
Okay.
is this a builder you're working with?
It's a new builder, but it's listed through a listing agent.
Okay, all right. Well, call them and say, hey, we would like to extend the inspection period and would just soon do one inspection rather than pay the inspector to come out twice.
Okay.
Unless all it is but even when they put the appliances in, the inspector usually makes sure that the stove is heating and the refrigerator's cooling and all that stuff in it, you hope
Yeah.
it is, but if you
Right.
move in and it's not, then now you got to scramble to find the builder and get it fixed.
So what do you, I've never done this before. What would a re-inspection run?
Usually I always recommend that people bring the inspector back to the walkthrough inspection, because if there's repairs that have been done and everything, it's very difficult sometimes to determine whether they're done and done properly. $100 to $150.
Okay.
Depends on the inspector.
Okay.
But
So,
usually there's at least a $75 charge if they have to
Okay.
come out a second time.
So should I basically, would you recommend me just kind of running it by the buyer and asking what they would prefer? to
Yep.
see if they want to get the initial inspection and then pay for the subsequent re-inspection, so they have time
Or
to.
if they just
issues.
want to do it all at once. Yeah, that's a good, that would be a good thing to present to your buyer,
Okay,
see what they want to do. It's their money.
okay,
But if they're anxious to have it done, have the major stuff done now, and then if there's an issue, they can, they have time to fix it before closing.
okay.
But it's up to them, I think. There'll be a cost for doing
Yeah.
2 inspections.
Right. And then what is your familiarity with the reports on showing time? Do you ever look at those reports?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that they're limited to, I can look at them as a broker for just our listings. You can look at them for your listing, and I used to look at and share the graph showing the number of showings, and you can attach any feedback that you think is going to be helpful to your seller, especially if they all come in and say they're overpriced.
So
Yeah.
we could only look at the showings on our listings. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. That's why I was not able to see some of the showings.
And I can look at the showings for our office. I can look at any, the cumulative of showings for our office,
Uh-huh.
but not the market. The broker panel that I sit on, we get overall market showing stats once a month. I don't see any reason why I can't share those. But most of as an agent, most of the showing data that I like to use was that graph showing the number of showings and how many people gave you feedback. And if the feedback was all very consistent in an area or about the price, then I used to share that with the seller, because it's not me telling them, it's the market.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
All righty. Well, for our class of one, I enjoyed it, and have a great
Well, thank
week.
you for the info. I'll see you later.
All righty.
All right, thanks,
See
John.
you, Kristen.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.